Okay, family, back for part 2 in the series Holy Days and Holi-days. And this one is the Christmas we're talking about. So we left off with Krampus, which was the Baphomet version of like a dark spirit, right? And his role was to go around and steal the children, and he'd put them in this sack, and then I guess legend has it he would take them back to his place wherever he lived and eat the children, right? Now, when the Romans came along, they had their festivals, and this one was called Saturnalia. And again, Saturn is where we get the word, also we get the word Satan, and that's like a whole another topic to go into. There have been other scholars and amazing people that have covered that, so I would recommend checking into that kind of thing. But for the purpose of this show, what was Saturnalia? Well, that was a festival or a time that the Romans celebrated, where they would go out into the villages and find all the poor people, and in exchange for having sex with their children, they would give money and gifts to the poor people. So that's where, you know, all the gifts of the Santa Claus character comes from, because like if you receive a gift from one who is deceitful, it's going to be more like a Trojan horse gift. And if you can take this concept of this Baphomet character, or this Satan character, or Krampus, and flip the script and make him into a good character, and now he's got white skin instead of black skin, and we're going to take the horns off of him, and I think he also used to dress up in green as well, yeah, as opposed to the red and white. And we're going to change his costume. We're going to, you know, make all these ulterior, you know, exterior changes rather, but it's still the same thing underneath. They just put a little window dressing on it, and oh, look, it's a white beard, red and white. You know, I don't know what that actually does for people, but I know a lot of kids, when they're asked to sit on the lap of Santa, they freak out, like they just, because they can sense that this is evil at its core, whether you get gifts or not. But the gifts are there to lure you into doing something, which is, or lending your energies towards something which is based in deception and evil. And that's the case with all the holidays. The other thing I wanted to share with you is, what does everybody say? Well, unless you're like, you know, in Central or South America or Mexico, you would say Feliz Navidad, which is a little bit closer to the original intention of the Holy Day, which is happy birth to yourself, happy new life, happy springtime that's coming, happy crop season, you know, this new birth kind of thing. But in the northern climes, or in the like United States, Canada, Europe, England for sure, Australia, New Zealand and whatnot, they would either say merry or happy. Basically means the same thing. It means to be cheerful. But they would say Merry Christmas or Happy Christmas. So what is Christmas? Where does that word come from? So it's actually two words. And the first word is Christ, or Christ, which is a more modern word. So where does that word come from? It comes from the Greco-Roman word Christos, Krystos. And Christos refers to the Christ consciousness, that we would call, you know, if you wanted to use the Jesus Christ character, you would say the Christ consciousness. But before the Jesus Christ character came on the scene, it was the Christos. It was this individual spark of the divinity that resides within each one of us, and our work that we do in this evolutionary life experience to develop that Christos, to develop that higher level of consciousness. So that explains the first part of the word Christmas, which is 2 words. So that's the Christos, or the Christ in this case. And then Mas is also spelled M-A-S-S, which you will see that in the Catholic Church, again, going back to the Baphomet and the Great Deceiver and the false light and the one who gets everybody to follow him and telling them all kinds of lies and promising things that aren't his to deliver. So M-A-S-S in the church is sacrifice, and that's what M-A-S means as well. It's just there's a letter missing from this version of the word and that version of the word. It's deception, but that's pretty much par for the course. Everything is a deception, so you gotta like kind of ask, really, who are you and where did you come from? And you know, but if we don't, we just blindly follow, then we're still following something we just don't know what it is. We think we know, but we really don't, because we haven't looked into it. So Mas means sacrifice. So if you have Mass at church, that means you are sacrificing your time to come to church and participate in whatever sacrifice they're doing. And there's one they do, I forget what it's called. I think it's called communion, where they hold up this like wafer of bread and they say, this is the body of the Jesus Christ character, and then this glass of wine, and this is the blood. And you know, what is that? Eating body parts and drinking blood. Well, that's cannibalism. And it's not something that we're supposed to do, is eat the flesh of one another. But anyhow, that's a Mass in the Catholic Church, just to give you an idea. So what is Christmas? It is the sacrifice of the Christos, or the sacrifice of the Christ consciousness. So when you say Merry Christmas or Happy Christmas, you're saying be cheerful in the sacrifice of your Christ consciousness. You're sacrificing your opportunity to develop a higher level of consciousness. You're sacrificing your goal, your objective, your desire, your responsibility, fill in the blank, whatever you want to describe this. But you know, we all came here to kind of have this evolutionary growth process, and that's it, you know. And however that unfolds is just as unique as every individual on the planet. But that we go on this path, that we do the hard work, that we step outside of our comfort zone, that we do our shadow work and this kind of thing. This is the steps towards, you know, achieving the higher levels of consciousness. And so to sacrifice that means to say, I'm just going to ignore all that. I'm not gonna pay any attention to the responsibility I have for you know, developing myself or evolving myself in any way. That I'm just going to give that responsibility to this Jesus Christ character who's been sacrificed on a cross, and I'm going to wait for him. Like, he's been sacrificed for my sins, like for my mistakes, for my times that I missed the bullseye. This guy has to be sacrificed. Like, I'm not sure. I haven't thought about that very much, but it just doesn't seem right that somebody else should take responsibility for my actions or my inactions. Especially if my actions or inactions were called sins, which are nothing more than mistakes. It's like there's no price to pay, there's no debt, there's no blame or shame or guilt. You just made a mistake, you learn from it, and you move on. But I'm just gonna ignore my responsibility to have this learning, this evolutionary process of learning, and I'm gonna just put all the responsibility on this guy and then sacrifice him, and then we'll just wait for him to come back, because he's gonna save us. His blood saves us. Like, I'm not sure where that fits into natural law, but it doesn't resonate when I compare that to natural law. Natural law says if I step off a cliff, then I have to experience the effects of gravity, whether I know about them or not, and I can't delegate that to somebody else. So my intuition tells me if I came here to have an evolutionary growth process or a path of life experience that's going to teach me and allow me to achieve a higher level of consciousness, then for me to shirk those duties and responsibilities that I have to myself it doesn't resonate with me at all. But then to just say, oh, not only am I going to shirk these responsibilities and duties to myself, but I'm going to make that guy responsible for them, for me, right? And so therein lies the deception of the religare, which is the Latin word for religion. And the definition of the religare is to tie up, to bind, or to hold back from truth. So it's words, look into them, and entomology, I think they call that, but again, with the Christmas. So what is Christmas? What is Merry Christmas? That means be happy while I'm sacrificing my Christ consciousness. And that's ultimately what we end up doing, is sacrificing our Christ consciousness, our movement towards achieving higher levels of consciousness. We sacrifice that on the altar of deception when we, especially in many ways this can be done, but for the purpose of this series, we'll just say, we do that when we follow the Holi-days. Because recall, they're issued by one of two organizations: the church, to tie up, to bind, or to hold back from evolutionary progress, or government, gubernmente, which is mind control. So, that was like the whole point of this series, was to just illustrate, the roots and the origins of the original days that were considered sacred and holy, and that, were meaningful, and they were based in spiritual practices, right? Not consumerism and materialism and feeding copious amounts of sugar to our children and gathering on a specific day that Caesar said to gather, and eat this food and wear these clothes and do these rituals, so that your energy can be harvested. That's what the purpose of the holidays are. It's to harvest energy. And it's very easy to harvest people's energy when they're participating in rituals that you've set up for them that make them vulnerable. I think I covered everything here, but I just wanted to, before I close, to just, I realize it's difficult to take something that you believed in your whole life, or something that you feel like is a tradition, or it's my Christmas or whatever. It's not yours, it's not mine, it's not ours. We didn't come up with this on our own. It was given to us, and it was given to us by an organization that was, and always will be affiliated with human sacrifice, deception, false light, pedophilia, human trafficking, theft, rape, war, destruction, and I could go on and on about the church and the government too, but in this case, this one comes from, the church. So what has this holiday sort of evolved into now? So fast forward all the way to, say, the 19th or 20th or even 21st century. Wow, this is the time of year that I have to spend a bunch of money that I don't have to buy gifts for a bunch of people to what? To tell them that I love them, or I don't know. Like, 'cause I need a gift to do that. I need to present you with something that costs money in order for me to convey to you how much I appreciate you and how much I love you. It's also, you know, a time to, again, feed copious amounts of sugar to our children and to ourselves. It's a time for feasting, not fasting. So that's the opposite of spirituality. Again, let's not forget all the stuff that we buy at this time of year. Where does that come from? Well, it comes from China, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Bangladesh, India, these countries that have people literally chained to a desk making cell phones and toys and whatever else, right? They are not allowed to speak. They can't even talk to one another for their 12-hour shift. If they have to go to the bathroom, they have to raise their hand and get permission, and then the guard comes over and uncuffs them, because they're cuffed to these desks with chains, lets them go to the bathroom, and they can only go to the bathroom one at a time, because they don't want them in the bathroom conspiring about how they're going to overtake the guard and get out of their work camps. And then, you know, at the end of their 12-hour shift, they might get a bowl of rice, and then they go jump on a cot that some other guy just jumped out of, because he was sleeping while you were doing your 12-hour shift, and now he's going to go do his 12-hour shift to get his bowl of rice. So imagine if you were one of those people, and where's your energy at, right? You know, where is your emotion at that moment? Like, you're a slave, right? It's a miserable existence. So all of the energy that their hands is coming out through the portals, it's being imprinted into the things that they're making. So we're taking all that. We're not only supporting slavery by making the demand for these kinds of things in the market, but then the things that are made have this energy on them. And then how do they get from, say, China to the United States? Well, they get put on a shipping container. And then the shipping container gets loaded on a big, huge ship that sets out to sea and pollutes the water with all of its diesel engines and throwing its rubbish and raw sewage into the ocean. And then it comes to the port, and it gets unloaded, and it gets put on more vehicles to send to all the stores and things like that. So all that footprint, you know, this, I don't know, as long as we're using antiquated, you know, methods of combustion engines that require Mother Nature's cranial sacral fluid, aka oil, to run, then it's polluting the environment, which is suicide. And then, you know, we wrap all this stuff up, right? And more waste that goes into the earth. And then think about all the trees that get cut down. You know, it's wicked. And not to mention the animals that are sacrificed. Oh my God, and the way that they're treated all year long, right? And then you're going to stuff yourself with this dark energy of this poor animal who's been, you know, just treated horribly and slaughtered without respect at all. So, you know, that's Christmas. It's super, super dark. Like I said, I saved the best for last because most people don't realize it, but this is a day that's based in literally the image of the devil, of the deceiver, of Baphomet, of the false light, and of, like all the other holidays, it, you know, it's you stuff yourself and, you know, and just screw up your kids with all this copious amounts of sugar, and buy, you know, and just take, and what can you give me? You know, it's not, it doesn't, you know, for me, it never did resonate with me. So it took me some time, but I'm going to present, you know, the way I feel about things. And I know it's going to probably get on a lot of people's triggers, you know, because they're going to say, well, I've always celebrated Christmas. Well, so what? Just because you've done something in the past doesn't mean you have to do it in the future. Just because you were like this back then doesn't mean you have to continue to be like this now. We always have an opportunity to change our perspective or to rebirth ourselves. But these videos are primarily just to share with you, you know, some of my thoughts. And if they resonate with you, if you find them to be a blessing in any way, it's my honor to share them with you. Ideally, I would like to see my brothers and sisters celebrating that which is sacred and holy, and not making themselves vulnerable for the siphoning of energy that takes place with the holidays. And that's my prayer. So thanks for joining me, family, and until next time, namaste. Love you very much. Bye.